Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kops Office Hours. It is Friday, February 16th, and we have a couple of items on the agenda for the day. If anyone else has any other agenda items, please do add them. The big one that I think is probably top of everyone's mind is the Kops 1.9 release, which I think we're probably ready for. There are some housekeeping items, the normal things like building a new image and bumping the Docker version, all that sort of stuff that happens basically systematically every release, making sure that we're in sync with what upstream is doing. GKE has not yet done 1.9, which, as far as I know, which makes me a little, like, it's always nice to do whatever GKE is doing, but it is probably time on the Kops side anyway. I don't know if anyone else has anything that they want to see. The other thing that obviously has to happen is I'm going to do a pass over all the PRs, make sure there's nothing that's sitting there that really needs to be into 1.9. And I know there are some of those. I've been working on that, but yes, they keep building up, and I know there are some. But if anyone has anything that they really think is important for Kops 1.9 that they're aware of, please speak up. Otherwise, we'll do a Kops 1.9, Alpha 1, Beta 1, this weekend. I will try to do that. Good. And we got out Kops 1.8.1 last Monday, or maybe it was last Friday, I don't recall. But the big thing in Kops 1.8.1, along with bumping all the network providers, which seems to be perpetual, was adding ignoring the new keyset.yaml file, which is added in 1.9, the Kops 1.9. So we now have a downgrade path. So if people decide that they don't like Kops 1.9, which hopefully they won't, but if they do, then they're not stuck with this weird file that causes their clusters to blow up. You will have to downgrade to 1.8.1 if you choose to do that, though. Kops 1.8.1. Kubernetes doesn't matter. Good. Well, that seems uncontentious, which is good news always. I think Chris Love had a bunch of things on the agenda. I don't know if he's here. He is not yet. I think the questions around phases and life cycle, it's definitely best to wait for him. We are generally, there's a housekeeping item on the agenda, which is that we're generally trying to organize our calendars a little bit better. I think that the documents are owned by individuals. Honestly, I don't know who owns the documents. The calendars are owned by individuals. And I think we're going to try to figure out an ownership that is a group account. If we change calendars, we will try to make it seamless. I don't know exactly how we're going to do that, but I don't want to. I imagine what we'll do is if we choose calendars, we'll double run the calendar for a while. So don't be surprised if you see 2 Kops office hours or 2 SIG AWS for a month or two, and then hopefully we'll tell everyone every time that switch to the new one, and then we'll delete the old one. I'm not sure that will work, but anyway, we'll figure it out. Otherwise, I don't know if anyone else has any. This could be a very, very quick meeting. I don't know if anyone else has any items that they want to discuss, or any APRs or any design issues regarding Kops. Go for it. Sorry.
Stephen.
Hey.
So I'm new to Kops, not super new to Kubernetes generally, but as far as implementing it at a company I am. And we have a pretty specific use case where we want to maintain point-to-point connection between all of our clients and our servers the way it currently exists, but still have Kubernetes orchestrate the starting and stopping of things. And we're in AWS, and so we have some particular networking things that we need to get in place for that to work. And there is a branch that was merged in the last month or so that allows Kops to spin up clusters that use this CNI plugin that was developed by an Amazon engineer. Anyway, the short version of it is, I'm just starting to get into it, starting to learn about Kops and use it for the first time. And I've just been having some issues with getting it to work, period. So I've tried launching a cluster within our existing VPC, but it seems as though we make a bunch of assumptions about what subnets are going to be created and used. And the subnets flag doesn't seem to really take effect. So I'm going to start digging into the code there to see if I can kind of help figure out. So I've added some debugging output from my runs into the PR, an existing PR. And then I created a PR where I was trying to just do a vanilla cluster in AWS with the Gossip DNS, and that just doesn't seem to work. Like, I'm going to dig in this morning now and try and figure out how much of it comes up. It seems as though it is creating instances and certain bits and pieces are coming up. But Chris, I believe, asked that I try and rebase to top of tree to see if some of the stuff that he added to the make file will fix it. So anyway, I want to introduce myself. My name is Steven, and I work at Wish, and we're trying to move in this direction.
That is awesome. I think, yeah, definitely post issues and probably ping me on Slack with them, because my GitHub notifications are just a disaster. But
yeah.
I think the AWS CNI ENI provider is still newer.
Yes.
I don't know if Gossip on its own didn't work for you.
I did vanilla plain Jane from the docs, like hello world AWS. Just
right.
It seems like bits and pieces of it came up, but when I actually did a kubectl get nodes, it was like EOF.
Right.
Back from the server.
You're running master, and the problem we've had was we have a component called NodeUp, and we had changes to NodeUp with one of the key sets. Was that it, Justin? And NodeUp was failing because of that. The make file should have fixed it where it pulls down NodeUp 1.81. There we go. So that it launches. If you look in your, are you running Debian?
Should be Debian, yeah.
If you look in the daemon log files, you'll be able to see the error with NodeUp if it's still bailing. If it is, and that make file change didn't fix it, should have instructions on how to do a make upload, and that's what you're going to want to do is host your own NodeUp.
Right.
Should get you by there. But yeah, post some like with the Gossip cluster. Let us know what's going on. Get us some logs, and we can poke around with it. So
yeah. So I was saying a little bit earlier that I appreciate. Thanks, Chris, by the way, for all the commentary on my issues. This morning I was going to dig in deeper and try and rebase the top of tree and get you some debug information. See if we can get to that.
Perfect. Let us know.
Yeah, I hope it is just the upload issue. The uploading of the
NodeUp
side. We do have E to E, I believe, on one of the. It might be on GCE that runs in Gossip, I think. So I think we have test coverage on this, but I will have to double check.
Yeah. Yeah, the sad truth is that the first Kubernetes cluster I set up was in GCP. That was a breeze, and everything worked even the way we wanted it to, but all of our stuff is in AWS. So, yeah.
That will actually be the big thing, I think, or one of the big things in Kops 1.9 is I think we can turn off the alpha feature gate for GCE and say, yes, it actually is now
perfect,
ready to create clusters without a feature flag. But yes, and I hope it's just the upgrade issue and the upload issue to make sure that the versions skew. And I think I've heard a lot of people have this problem, and I think we need some better docs around. Here's how you upload both at the same time, right? Because we try to make it so that it will just work, but I broke that when I added this keyset YAML file where it no longer just works. As long as the versions are in sync, it's fine. But if you just build Kops CLI and you're running the previous NodeUp, it does not work.
Got it.
But now what we've done is we've uploaded a NodeUp that actually includes the toleration for keyset.amos, so you'll get away with it again.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I just spent 5 years at a company where doing open source was a hard thing, and now it's not. So I'm more than happy to help with documentation, with whatever, to make that clear.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful. And Chris, I think you had 2 topics on there around the phases in the lifecycle. We talked about 1.9 alpha. It seems like everyone's ready, just the normal bumping of Docker and all that sort of stuff, and image building, and doing a pass over all the outstanding PRs, make sure nothing is critical. But then we can roll with 1.9 alpha 1 or beta 1, depending on how we feel. But you had 2 comments around life cycles and phases.
Yeah, so we've been talking on PRs exactly how you want the lifecycle overrides to work. And I think I finally understand what you wanted, where you and correct me if I'm wrong, you want task of, say, security group type, or whatever the task that we have. You want the lifecycle override to just be for that task type. Is that correct?
Yeah,
or do you
I
based
think
on phases?
well, I mean, I think phases are a group of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that you have some use cases where people want to like drill down even more beyond the phase, and I was suggesting the next step is to allow you to change the mode by the type of rule, and I guess eventually it might be by the type and name of the actual task that we're actually running. So for people that don't know, the idea is, Kops is sort of like Terraform, where we build a model of the cloud resources that we want, and then we synchronize the model with, it's also like Kubernetes, we synchronize the model with the real world, with the actual cloud. And to do that, when you do a Kops update cluster, or without yes, you see a preview of all those things it's going to go and create or modify. And the phases idea is the idea that in complicated enterprise companies, it may be that one person doesn't have the responsibility or the authority to do all those tasks. It may be that one group has to create the IAM policies, another group has to create the network, and another group has to create the compute resources. And so phases try to split it along the obvious division lines. I think the phases we have right now are security, network, and cluster, or compute, or cluster, which is sort of the compute type things. And I think Chris, who's been driving a lot of this work, has found a use case where the security team is split between IAM roles and security group things, and wants to drill further.
It's not so much, well, there's multiple things. So it goes back to the PRs that we have. We have one that's an IAM PR where you bring your own IAM profiles, and the other is a security group profile, or security groups, right? So I've got about 3 or 4 PRs in flight around this, unfortunately or fortunately. You can't use those 2 PRs independently unless we had another phase. That's the first point. And the second point is trying to figure out exactly how to do the overrides when you do use those PRs, because we're going to need the override specifically for those 2 PRs where we're not going to want to create like the security group rules. And I think that's what we talked about.
But you can still validate that the rules exist as declared in the Kops manifest.
Yeah, well, that's the next topic on the meeting agenda. Is I don't know if that's quite working right. So, so did you want a PR for overrides that overrides by phases or overrides by task? Because I got both for you.
What do you mean by overrides by phases versus overrides by task?
Phase name. So if you have, you want to override security phase or set the life cycle for security phase, it does that. I also have a PR that sets the life cycle by task name.
I mean,
so if you have a target pool task in GCE, you'll be able to set the life cycle for that task.
I mean, I think that what it boils down to is, it always boils down to setting the life cycle, right? Which is like create or validate or just ignore, right? Or
yep.
At the actual task level, so each individual resource. Now, it would be really annoying to have to specify, 100 different things and get them all right on the Kops CLI, which is, I think, why we did phases, which is sort of like a shortcut, which is sort of predefined groupings. But I think if you want to create a relatively, whatever DSL type thing you think makes sense, like.
I think it's too complicated. My call would be to create another phase and just allow us to set life cycles by phases.
But I mean, where does it end, right?
I know, but we can't create a UX where I'm, to your point, or do we do both? Do we allow a user to have 30 overrides and do it by phases as well?
It might be a message.
Life cycle overrides, and then we'll have life cycle, oh my God, overrides.
I mean, I think you should. re-examine your life choices when you have 30 flags you're passing to cops. But
that's called, well, that goes to another question, is should we have this stuff in the API?
no.
No. See, I think we should.
It's not a model concern. It's a management concern.
So you want both?
I think what I was imagining, we would have a phase a flag which was called, I think we called it phases, right? And you could
we have a phase flag.
Phase, okay. And you could define, you could either not pass it at all, in which case you get the default. We create everything for you. It's one user. They have permissions. You could say phase equals security, and we'll do the security rules. Phase equals network. We'll do the network. Phase equals cluster. We'll do that. And there's a natural, those are the three ones that you run in succession if you have the sort of obvious split where you have a security group, a network group, and a cluster group. If you have just a security group and a everything else group, you can do phase equals security and then phase equals network, comma, cluster. If you have if you get more complicated and you split your security group, right, then what I think we do is I think we have phase equals security, comma, minus security group rule, something like that. So in other words, some DSL which reflects the idea of what you want to select, which ones you want to do. I don't like it.
So you just said security group rule, or I'm running, sorry if this is so complicated and sorry we're taking up so much time on this, guys. So phase, you want to remove the security group rule task, or you're running phase cluster and you want to set the life cycle for this phase, so that's what I think we're confused about, or I'm confused about.
So we
have a phase. So let's say we're running cluster, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to provide the functionality to set the life cycle for a task?
Yes.
Or for a group of tasks?
Yes. I mean, I think we want to do so the phase flag. The phase is a way to set a group of life cycles on a group of tasks that are defined by a facet, right? And the facet that we are defining it on is the grouping which we've defined, right? We think there are these three teams. Those three teams might not correspond to what you have, and so we might want a way to define it based on the facet of the task type. We might want a way to define it based on the facet of the task name, which is really unpleasant, but that gives you the ultimate control. I would hope that what we can do is if we have it based on the phase, the predefined phases, and we have it based on the task name, the type of the task, based on the predefined phases and the type of the task, that is sufficient. I would hope that there's no one crazy enough out there that has a different team managing security groups in one zone than in another zone. But
so you're thinking IAM perms and security groups. There's also the use case where we've got these insane PRs coming in where we're going to have to override stuff that Kops expects, no matter what permission the person has. Okay, so we want both by task type and by phase. I have two PRs that do that. Okay. The only question is getting them to work together, which is going to be interesting, because I think they will work together. The other question is the CLI flags. I think we can argue about the CLI flags offline, because I don't want to have a CLI flag that's super complicated. I'd rather that has everything in it and I'm somehow parsing it. I'd rather have like 3 different flags for this. But we can talk about that in the PRs, because I think it's complicated enough. We should break apart the functionality that the overrides are in one flag for phases, the overrides for task names are in another flag, and phases it keeps the same way. So, but we'll talk about that offline. The last item that I had on the agenda was how the phase overrides are working, because I don't think the validate and not fail is working in life cycles. So I think because we have the warn if exists or something. So what I'm looking for in functionality lifecycle is that we validate, but we keep on going. We fail the validation, but we allow the insane user to keep on going.
Validate and warn if not exists. I think we have that, right?
Validate and warn if does not exist doesn't quite work, I don't think.
Well, I mean, do you mean it doesn't work for your use case, or do you mean there is a bug in the current implementation?
Well, the bug, I think I don't believe it behaves in the manner that you just described.
Okay, then that's fine. That's just a bug, right?
Because I think I found an issue where you said that we need to return a error type to the executor so that it'll pass. And I can't find, of course, I can't find that issue.
Okay.
Let me dig up that issue. I've taken up enough time on this call. Let me dig up that issue, and I'll ping you back with that issue.
Okay, perfect.
But I think I need some direction on how to fix the executor, which I really don't want to know if I want to touch or not.
Okay.
I messed that up. Nothing works in Kops.
Then,
actually, I found it. Ah, look at that. It must be a good day or something.
Other than that, we don't have anything on the agenda. I don't know if anyone wants to inject anything. Otherwise, we can talk about this now, and anyone that is not interested in life cycles can drop. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything they want to ask about any other areas.
I do want to bring up something.
Go for it.
So Chris mentioned an open PR related to life cycles for the external IAM stuff. That's my PR, and I just wanted to mention that the functionality of it still works without life cycles. It's just that defining it it'll apply the change all in one phase. So in our specific use case, where it's all applied in a CI environment in one step, it works perfectly fine.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. On that same I'll corner Justin since he's on the call. Can we pretty please get a review on that so we might be able to get it into 1.9?
I will take a look. Do we think that's a 1.9er? Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think that's pretty
yeah. I actually tested that and it worked fine as well. That would be really helpful to land for 1.9 for us.
Cool.
I will get you that PR number, Justin, and paste it into the dev channel.
I work my way backwards each morning, and I get as far as I get. So you'll notice that like the newer PRs are being reviewed much faster than the older PRs. But
yeah, I think it's on the second page now.
Oh, I get through that first page. But I figure maybe the weekend will be quieter.
Yeah. 4171 for the record.
I added a place where my November PR is like 4 pages back now, probably.
Maybe I'll do a pass in the wrong order, in the correct order, I should say. There are only 3 pages, so.
All right, well that's good. That's a start.
Oh, there are 75. So there are 73 pages because I literally just closed, or I just merged what I think. But okay, yes. Anyway, what's your PR? Mike, what's your PR?
So I have one adding the suspend processes to instance groups. Originally, I hard coded it so that instance groups no longer have, they suspend the process that allows rebalancing. But you and Chris commented a little bit, and then I thought about it, and so I made it just configurable on instance groups that you can suspend different auto-scaling processes. I don't know if people have like more objections to this. I know there's objections often to like adding additional config values and stuff like that. But anyone has feedback, that'd be cool, because this would be really beneficial for my team.
It's 3829, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why I gave a pause was just whether suspend processes is too tightly bound to AWS, but on the other hand, it's optional. It's not going to appear if not. If you're on a different cloud, you might have different things. I just don't know what the correct word is. It's the naming problem. But also maybe I'll just merge it and then we can, I mean, I think at some stage we're going to do a networking split out of API objects. which will be almost definitely involve a new API version. And so if we decide in 2 months we come up with a much better name, which let's be honest won't happen, then we can rename it then.
Yeah, if anyone has name ideas, I'm all ears. So that's just all I had.
Our name is suspend processes, which is very clear about what it's doing.
Yeah, I dug through what Terraform calls it and then what AWS calls it, and it's inconsistent in different places. So that's what I went with.
Hey, Robin, the add-ons PR that you're reviewing,
Yeah.
do you know what number that is?
Let me find it here.
Is that, yeah, it's Polar Bizzle 4268.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think we should add make that an array, or should we have a top level object where we're adding more channels? And then it corresponds back to the cluster. So to add some background, this is allowing a user to specify more add-ons or more channels, which goes back to our channels program or channels binary that we use, to a cluster spec. So what the user did was they added an array of add-ons of additional channels. And I'm wondering if we should have like literally channels objects that are defined in the cluster spec. Or not in the cluster spec, but as a top level object.
I think that this is a good idea to have both whatever this becomes. I think the challenge is that it is likely that in the next year there will be an official system add-on thing, and if we expose channels, we have to support that and the official one. Whereas if we figure out what the official, which is not necessarily too bad, but is not a.
Well, we've been talking about an add-ons manager for like 2 years.
I know.
So
it's like,
I'm not holding my breath that it'll be fixed in a year.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask him what. Oh, I presume it's him. But
Well, Robin, what's your take on it? Because I know that your client needs it.
Yeah. This one sort of took us halfway there, but what we really want to do is selectively update or override add-ons. And this mostly just lets you add additional add-ons, because I don't see anything in here that handles conflicts between add-ons into different channels.
And I'm not sure how it's going to react when you add a weave add-on in your additional add-ons. What happens then?
Yeah,
First one wins, second one wins?
Exactly. And to be honest, I haven't looked at this since I got back from holidays, so I've got to dig into it again. But that was my initial impression, that there's still some more. So I think, was this the one I'd called out to you and Justin on? Oh no, it was a different
I
one.
tagged Justin on it.
Okay.
That's why I'm bringing it up here.
Curious to see if you guys had insights on that aspect in particular.
What is your use case for modifying the add-ons? You just want a newer version of Weave, for example, or whatever it is?
Well, in general, if we want to customize some of the parameters or add a newer version or any of that sort of thing, we just want to be able to say, okay, we'll take care of managing this particular one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to figure out. So suppose we have an add-on manager. Kops has to create your Weave add-on to get the cluster up in the first place. When you upgrade Kops, you may expect to get an upgraded version of Weave if one is available. But at the same time, if you go and upgrade your Weave directly using the add-on manager on the cluster, it's very unclear who wins at that point. Because Kops wants to upgrade and you want to upgrade. There is a partial solution, which is to allow sort of an overlay type concept. So if your customization was effectively modifying some parameters, adding another config map, or changing the memory resources, that would be fine if you did it using the overlay way. If your change was to apply a different version of Weave, then it becomes non-trivial to know who should win.
Are you talking overlay or patch type functionality?
So yeah, it's patching overlays, patching, yeah. But I mean, I think that we're not. I think that the intent is there would be a base version for each version of Weave. So for Weave 1, 2, 3, 4, right, and then if Kops wants to go to version 2, but you've already upgraded Weave to version 3, I'm making up numbers, obviously. How do we reconcile those two? Presumably, you win because your version is bigger. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, then there's also the odd case of wanting to downgrade, right? Maybe. So, like, I think being able to just say, look, we want to manage this. We want to override whatever Kops is doing, and we'll take responsibility for testing our clusters and everything else. That's more the level that we're.
It could be an
looking at our client,
as whether it's managed by Kops or whether you've ejected it. Like I think you can.
Well, and see, I think that's outside the functionality of channels. I think we have two things. I think we have channels and add-on manager, which should just be one list of add-ons. And then we have Bootstrap Builder, which should be able to take whatever a user specifies and then create that one list of add-ons. I don't know. It's messy. But I think we just need to start somewhere. And we got permission to do that, we got blessing to do that kind of sort of at KubeCon. We've already exposed the channel, so technically we could, the channel's already exposed, so somebody could build their own channels already.
Yeah, although it's not exposing the API, right? I think
channels is exposing the API. I can repoint it to whatever I want and build add-ons that way. They're just making it an additional. So the question is, do we expose it as an array of objects, or do we allow that object to actually live in our API as a proper top-level object? That was my question.
One thing which might make everyone happy is if it was a manifest. So in other words, it's just something rather than a channel add-on. If it's just something that it's a file that we kubectl apply -f, right? And so we avoid having the channels thing as a concept, but rather say you're able to apply a manifest. And
give us your manifest.
Yeah, I don't know if would that work for you, Robin? For at least partially. I mean, we still have to solve the conflict issue, but at least for when you're adding stuff, which it seems like additional channels is what that's about. Would that be sufficient to just have a list of manifests? Because I presume that's all you're doing anyway.
Yeah, that would work for us.
That would be less risky, I think.
All right. Now, how are we gonna maintain and represent that in the API? That's my question.
Well, I mean, I think what he's written there, I presume, what Polar Bizzle has written there, it sounds good. I think we should just name it to additional manifests or something.
Right, but he's adding channels. He's not adding manifests.
Yeah, I'm saying we can ask him ask Polar Bizzle. I should not ask Polar Bizzle whether she is okay with it being manifests instead. My suspicion is that it's actually probably what they want, and it's better in terms of API guarantees, but we'll find out. Another option is GKE has a list of well-known things, I think. So you can say, I think it's literally dashboard, right? And you would write the word dashboard in there. And I think they have some additional options I don't recall. But then dashboard gets expanded out to the known manifest or channel behind the scenes. So that is an API we can support forever, right? Because we're not tying to a particular schema or format. I mean, it's a string, right? So it would then get expanded to a channel or a manifest, but it wouldn't be visible. So if the channel manifest mechanism changed, no problem. It wouldn't be exposed to the user. I'll comment on the issue, and if anyone else has any thoughts, do comment on that issue. It's a good one. The number is 4268. Is Polar Bizzle here? Yeah, okay. I don't know if other people have anything else they want to talk about, or Chris, do you want to review your phases discussion then? And we'll let
that'd be awesome.
Wish them all a happy weekend if you don't want to discuss phases life cycles.
If you don't want to listen to us rambling about the same stuff over and over again.
But everyone is very welcome to stay, of course.
Guys, I just have one quick question. Do we have any documentations on how channels work?
No, and that's deliberate. The reason being that, so channels is, I can tell you how, it's basically a wrapper around, it's an add-on manager, similar to the current add-on manager, or the add-on manager in Bash that GCE uses. It has a API type. I would like for that API type to be, or I had hoped we could get that API type sort of more aligned with upstream. It seems like upstream has a richer concept, which is Brian Grant's declarative application management approach, which is pretty good, I think. I think it makes a ton of sense. The idea is that you'll have a master manifest or an official manifest, and then you'll have additional patch files, which will be layered on top. So if you want to, and then the idea being you can upgrade the base manifest and your patches will still be layered on top. And the idea is that then, you know, Weave can upgrade 1, 2, 3, 4. You as an operator can apply your own changes. Like I think there's a peer connection limit that just went in. So I want to set the peer connection limit separately based on my own cluster. I want to set the memory resources based on my own cluster. And even as Weave upgrades, your changes will still be applied on top and you can still customize it. So that, if we can adopt that approach, then I think it's time to, then we can document it. But channels right now is not an API we're going to commit to, I don't think. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I think it's, the neat thing about it actually is that the version, it won't, the reason we created it, it won't overwrite your changes unless there's a version upgrade in the manifest. Mm-hmm. So there's a master manifest which actually links to child manifest files, and each one of those has a semantic version associated with it. They mm-hmm. get stored as actually annotations on the kube system namespace, which is a thing. And then, and that way, if you go and change your Weave, if you go and change your Weave manifest, if you're using Weave and you change your Weave manifest on your running cluster on a GCE kube up one, 5 minutes later it gets reverted when the add-on manager goes and tweaks it. If you do it on Kops, it will not be reverted until you upgrade Weave, whereupon it will be reverted. And so the add-on manager concept is intended, so the declarative application management is intended to separate out your changes from the upstream changes so that there is actually an answer to how do we allow users, operators, to customize system add-ons while at the same time allowing us to upgrade system add-ons. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'll look more into it. At least I got a rough idea of how it works.
Yeah, that's the.
Let's take a look at the code.
Yeah. Cool. It's a very thin number around kubectl.
The short solution is it runs a kubectl apply and manifest, and runs inside protocube. That's the short answer.
Okay, thanks.
Phases and life cycles, or wishing everyone a happy weekend? That doesn't want to talk phases and life cycles. Chris,
So I think I put the 3668 where we were talking about you made a comment that into recognize and run retriable errors so the executor won't keep retrying. The warn exists and warn if changes. So how the heck do I do that in Golang?
You just create a well-known error type, or you have it implement an interface.
Okay, so we got to create an error type, but where in the executor would I actually be checking for that? Because that executor code, I'm like, like I said, I'm a little cautious about touching that file.
So render is
what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll find you the link if you need it.
So executor.go, run tasks.
I'm
looking around 105.
I'd probably change it at yeah, around there, where we go through. We run all our tasks that are available to run. We fork join them. Then we look through the errors which we got, if any. We currently say any non-nil error is considered a real error. And now we want to say if the error is not nil, then check to see if it implements this interface or is this static value. And if it is a tolerable error, then we would just log info or glog v2 it and not treat it as an error. Treat it as if error was nil, right? So we'd mark the task as done, last error equals nil, and progress.
I think I sort of did that, but not as eloquently as what you said.
Okay.
In the PR, but that's pretty easy to do. That'd be awesome. Now, what intrigued me was what Peter said, that it should work without it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, like, this is like declaring your subnet IDs, right? It shouldn't, Kops should be able to run regardless of, phases should not change the behavior. It should only change
when it runs.
Yes, it should allow you to split up the runs into different portions. Almost as if you've taken the Terraform file and split it into 3 pieces.
Right. Cool. That's it. That was easy. Oh, do you want to work out the flags for life cycles and phases? Or ponder that?
One thing that occurred to me is, remember, it is if you have multiple flags, you tend to lose the order if you're not careful.
If I have multiple flags, I tend to lose the order.
So if you have flag A and flag B, and the user types A equals 1, A equals 2, B equals 3, you will get A equals 1 and 2, B equals 3. But if you type B equals 3, A equals 1, A equals 2.
I'm losing your example. That's way over. That's like.
If you have one flag, you receive the array of values in order. If you have 2 flags, you do not see the order they were passed on the command.
So we could put the overrides in 1.
Yes, so you'd have to explicitly make it very clear. I don't think that it has a ton of value to have overrides as a separate flag that you then have to you then have 2 DSLs which you have to merge with 1 DSL.
Well, but it's not, because when I do a slice array in Cobra, I'm able to have the slice array, right? But we're going to merge something that's a string val in Cobra, and really what I want is a slice array.
I think you can have a slice array no matter what. I think you can either have a slice array or I don't know, whatever works.
But I can't. I'm going to have to take a string val and then parse it, which scares the bejesus out of me. So I'm saying let's just leave phases alone and then have an overrides flag, or lifecycle overrides or phases overrides or whatever the heck we want to call it. And we'll throw all the overrides in there. And then and then I can have a naming for a phase. If it's a phase name, then I'll pull it out and make it a phase override. And if it's a task name, or if it's anything else, then I'll assume it's a task name.
I am fine with the flag called lifecycle overrides for like people that want to get crazy.
Yeah, I'll make one flag for lifecycle overrides. I'll play with that flag. I've got 2 PRs, one overrides for phases, the other overrides for task name.
Well, oh, you want to?
I think that's what we talked about.
So in order to run the IAM, okay. It seems weird to duplicate the phase thing across 2 flags.
Oops. But we have to know what phase we're running is one thing. And then we have to know what lifecycle we're playing with.
But a phase just sets life cycles.
A phase is setting what group of life cycles we're running.
Which is what life cycle
override. It doesn't set what the life cycle actually is.
No, it just sets life cycles.
It sets what life cycles are running, or what it sets. Actually, it doesn't even set. It sets a group of life. Well,
all right, let's discuss on the issue.
Perhaps too complicated at times.
But yeah,
so that's why we do it to make it easy for users.
All the tasks still exist. They just have a different life cycle, which for a lot of them will be ignore, I think, or skip, whatever it is. So it's just a way of blanket applying different life cycles to the same set of tasks. And that's why I think it's just one flag from a developer perspective. It's one flag. Now, from a UX perspective, I don't know what makes more sense. Any other?
A lot of people are using it, so I think we just pick something and run with it. So I don't think we can change. So here's the other thing, is that we're changing a flag that already exists and adding more functionality to it. We already have the phases flag that says security.
That's allowed. You're allowed to add new meanings as long as it is unambiguous and would have been rejected before.
Right. So I'm really, let me implement 2 flags. You can take a look at it and then mess around with it, and we can decide from there. Because I think it's going to be nasty for a user to have to parse 2 flags. Because it really kind of comes in my head that, okay, a user's going to set the phases to run the way that it is defined in the code, or the user's going to set the phase and the overrides, or a user can set the overrides but not the phases as well. Because the phase can be default, but I don't want to skip, or I want to warning exists on this task name.
I'm thinking that having one flag makes it clear that they are not 2 different things, that they are just one thing. But that's just my engineer hat saying, like, it's one thing, let's expose it as one thing.
I know, and we think in very different ways, so, you know, having 2 people approach the same problem and think quite differently actually gets a better result, so hey. I can do both, and we can take a look at both. Because I got 2 different PRs.
Okay.
So, and then we'll figure out in the middle where we want to be and then merge both of them.
Sounds like someone else is loving Visual Studio Code, by the way. Looking at the chat in Kops Dev.
Yeah, it's better.
I was using IntelliJ, and I was just like, I couldn't believe, and like, I was like, I'm never touching that Visual Studio Code thing. It's a node, it'll be rubbish, and it seems pretty fast.
I think correct me if I'm not crazy, but at one point, Gogland was the name, and then they changed it to Goland, and I just was like, I rage quit. I was like, I'm done. They renamed this thing. I can't upgrade it. I'm out of here. What else exists? And I was like, people should say VS Code is good. So. And I've been missing out on that tool. Like, I didn't install the tools, so none of the IDE stuff worked. Now it's great.
Yeah, I broke down and bought Gogland or Goland or whatever the hell they call it.
So is VS Code as heavy as Atom is? Because I stopped using Atom because that ate all my memory up. And I know it uses Electro or whatever on the background background for VS Code as well. That's what it's built on.
I think it depends on what you're comparing it to. I'm comparing it to IntelliJ, and I'm like, this thing is so lightweight and fast. If you're comparing it to Vim or Emacs, you'll be like, this thing is so heavy.
I'm comparing it to Atom, and I was an Atom user, and it's way better. And most of the plugins have been ported, so I don't know.
I was amazed that like it definitely feels faster than IntelliJ, like snappier than IntelliJ, which is not what I was expecting.
Well, they open sourced it, so it's what happens when stuff gets open sourced.
Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, I hope everyone has a wonderful, potentially long weekend for some of you, but have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
It was nice meeting you all. Take care.
Great to meet you, and looking forward to having you participate. And yeah, just ping me on anything.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.